Question 1. Risk assessment procedures indicate a potential discrepancy between a candidate's entrance examination score and their otherwise strong academic profile. The candidate has provided documentation of a significant personal hardship experienced immediately prior to the examination. Which of the following represents the most appropriate course of action for the American University of Madaba Admissions Committee? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the candidate's full academic record, consider the documented personal hardship, and explore potential alternative assessment methods or conditional admission pathways. Option B. Admit the candidate without any further review or conditions, assuming the strong academic profile outweighs the entrance exam score. Option C. Recommend the candidate retake the entrance examination without considering the documented personal hardship. Option D. Immediately deny admission based solely on the entrance examination score, as it is a primary criterion for admission. Correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the candidate's full academic record, consider the documented personal hardship, and explore potential alternative assessment methods or conditional admission pathways. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's commitment to academic integrity with the need to support students facing academic difficulties. The entrance exam is a critical gatekeeping mechanism, and ensuring its fairness and validity is paramount. A hasty or overly lenient approach could compromise the integrity of the admissions process, while an overly rigid approach might unfairly penalize a student who, despite initial struggles, possesses potential. Careful judgment is required to uphold standards, while also considering individual circumstances within the established regulatory framework of the American University of Madaba entrance exam. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the student's performance, considering all available data points beyond just the entrance exam score. This includes examining their academic history, any extenuating circumstances they may have presented, and potentially exploring alternative assessment methods or remedial programs. This approach aligns with the principles of fairness and due process, ensuring that decisions are not based on a single data point, but on a holistic evaluation. It also reflects a commitment to student development and support, which is often an implicit or explicit goal of educational institutions. The regulatory framework of the American University of Madaba entrance exam, while emphasizing academic standards, would likely also support a process that allows for review and consideration of individual cases to ensure equitable outcomes. An approach that immediately denies admission based solely on a low entrance exam score without further investigation fails to uphold the principle of holistic review. It risks overlooking a student with significant potential who may have had an off day or faced unforeseen challenges during the exam. This could be seen as a failure to adhere to the spirit of fair assessment, even if technically compliant with a narrow interpretation of the exam's pass/fail criteria. Another incorrect approach would be to admit the student without any conditions or further assessment, despite the low score. This undermines the purpose of the entrance exam as a measure of preparedness and could lead to academic difficulties for the student and strain on university resources. It fails to acknowledge the risk indicated by the assessment procedures and could be seen as a dereliction of the university's responsibility to ensure students are adequately prepared for its academic programs. Finally, an approach that involves fabricating or altering records to justify admission would be a severe ethical and regulatory violation. This undermines the integrity of the entire admissions process and constitutes academic misconduct. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a systematic and fair evaluation. This involves 1. Understanding the stated objectives and criteria of the entrance exam. 2. Gathering all relevant information about the applicant, including academic records, personal statements, and any documented extenuating circumstances. 3. Applying established review processes and protocols consistently. 4. Consulting with relevant stakeholders, such as admissions committees or academic departments, when complex cases arise. 5. Documenting all decisions and the rationale behind them thoroughly. This structured approach ensures that decisions are defensible, equitable, and aligned with the institution's mission and regulatory requirements. Question 2. Risk assessment procedures indicate a credible allegation of academic misconduct has been made against a prospective student during the entrance examination process for the American University of Madaba. The allegation suggests the student may have accessed unauthorized materials. What is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions committee? Option A. Immediately disqualify the applicant and reject their application based on the allegation. Option B. Ignore the allegation as it is unsubstantiated and proceed with the application review. Option C. Offer the applicant conditional admission pending a confession to the alleged misconduct. Option D. Initiate a formal investigation into the allegation, gathering evidence and providing the applicant an opportunity to respond, in accordance with university policy. The correct answer is A. Immediately disqualify the applicant and reject their application based on the allegation. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The university's entrance exam is designed to assess a candidate's genuine understanding and aptitude, not their ability to circumvent established academic standards. The pressure to gain admission can lead individuals to consider unethical shortcuts, making it crucial for the university to uphold its principles. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation of the alleged academic misconduct. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the student with an opportunity to respond to the allegations, and applying the university's established disciplinary procedures consistently and fairly. This approach aligns with the principles of due process and academic integrity, ensuring that decisions are based on facts and established rules, thereby protecting the reputation and standards of the American University of Madaba. The university's regulatory framework, as outlined in its academic policies and student conduct codes, mandates such a process to maintain a fair and credible admission system. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student's application based solely on an unsubstantiated rumor. This fails to uphold the principle of innocent until proven guilty and violates the student's right to a fair hearing. It also bypasses the university's own established procedures for handling allegations of misconduct, undermining its internal governance and potentially leading to legal challenges. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the allegation entirely, assuming it is unfounded without any investigation. This demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure the integrity of its admissions process. Such an action could allow unqualified or dishonest candidates to gain admission, devaluing the degrees awarded by the university and eroding public trust. A further incorrect approach would be to offer the student a conditional admission contingent on them admitting to the alleged misconduct, even if the evidence is weak. This pressures the student into a confession and circumvents the proper investigative process. It suggests a willingness to compromise academic integrity for expediency, which is contrary to the core values of any reputable educational institution. Professionals in university admissions and academic affairs should approach such situations by adhering strictly to the established policies and procedures. This involves a commitment to fairness, impartiality, and thorough investigation. A decision-making framework should prioritize evidence-based judgment, due process for the accused, and the consistent application of academic integrity standards. When faced with allegations, the process should be: 1. Acknowledge the allegation and initiate a formal review. 2. Gather all relevant information and evidence objectively. 3. Provide the accused party with a clear understanding of the allegations and an opportunity to present their case. 4. Evaluate the evidence against the university's established academic integrity policies. 5. Render a decision based on the findings and communicate it clearly, outlining any appeals process. Question 3. The assessment process reveals a significant number of applicants who meet the minimum academic thresholds but whose personal statements suggest a strong potential for leadership and community engagement, qualities highly valued by the university. However, there is also pressure to meet a specific enrollment target for the upcoming academic year. Considering these factors, which approach best upholds the integrity and fairness of the American University of Madaba's entrance examination process? Option A. Focus primarily on admitting applicants with the highest academic scores to maintain the university's reputation for academic excellence, regardless of other demonstrated qualities or the need to meet enrollment targets. Option B. Prioritize applicants who demonstrate exceptional leadership and community engagement potential, even if their academic scores are slightly below the top tier, to fulfill the university's stated values and enrollment targets. Option C. Expedite the review of applications from candidates who appear to have connections to influential individuals or organizations, as these may represent valuable future alumni and donors. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of all applicants' academic records and standardized test scores, ensuring they meet the established minimum requirements, and then use personal statements and extracurricular achievements as tiebreakers for borderline cases. The correct answer is B. Prioritize applicants who demonstrate exceptional leadership and community engagement potential, even if their academic scores are slightly below the top tier, to fulfill the university's stated values and enrollment targets. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for a robust and fair admissions process with the ethical obligation to ensure that all applicants are evaluated consistently and without bias. The pressure to admit a certain number of students or to favor specific profiles can create an environment where shortcuts or subjective judgments might be tempting, but these can undermine the integrity of the admissions process and potentially violate principles of fairness and equal opportunity. Careful judgment is required to uphold these principles. The correct approach involves a systematic and objective evaluation of all applicants based on predefined criteria. This ensures that the assessment process is transparent, equitable, and defensible. By focusing on the established academic and personal criteria, the university demonstrates its commitment to meritocracy and fair selection, which aligns with the ethical imperative to treat all individuals with respect and impartiality. This approach also minimizes the risk of discrimination and ensures that admitted students are genuinely qualified for the program. An incorrect approach that relies on anecdotal evidence or personal biases is professionally unacceptable. This fails to adhere to the principle of objective assessment, which is fundamental to fair evaluation. Such an approach can lead to discriminatory practices, either intentionally or unintentionally, violating ethical guidelines that prohibit unfair treatment based on factors unrelated to merit. Furthermore, it undermines the credibility of the admissions process and can lead to legal challenges if it can be shown that applicants were not evaluated on a level playing field. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes filling quotas over genuine qualification is also professionally unsound. This approach disregards the core purpose of an entrance exam, which is to identify candidates with the potential to succeed in their studies. Prioritizing numbers over merit can lead to the admission of underqualified students, which can negatively impact academic standards and the overall reputation of the university. Ethically, this approach fails to uphold the duty of care to both the admitted students and the institution by compromising academic rigor. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding of the university's admissions policies and ethical guidelines. Professionals should always refer to these established criteria when evaluating candidates. If there is any ambiguity or pressure to deviate from these standards, it is crucial to seek clarification from supervisors or relevant committees. The focus should remain on objective assessment, fairness, and the integrity of the process, ensuring that all decisions are justifiable and aligned with the university's mission and ethical commitments. Question 4. The assessment process reveals a candidate for the American University of Madaba entrance exam has demonstrated exceptional performance in all assessed areas except for slightly below average score in the critical reasoning section, which is a mandatory component. However, this candidate's overall academic record and extracurricular achievements are outstanding, suggesting a strong potential for success at the university. Considering the university's commitment to admitting well-rounded individuals, how should the admissions committee proceed? Option A. Offer the candidate a conditional admission, requiring them to complete a remedial critical reasoning course before commencing their studies. Option B. Recommend admission after a comprehensive review of the candidate's entire application, acknowledging the strength in other areas and the potential for growth in critical reasoning, provided the guidelines permit holistic evaluation. Option C. Reject the candidate due to the failure to meet the minimum threshold in the critical reasoning section, as per the strict interpretation of the exam's mandatory components. Option D. Reevaluate the scoring rubric for the critical reasoning section to accommodate this candidate's otherwise strong profile, potentially adjusting the passing standard. The correct answer is B. Recommend admission after a comprehensive review of the candidate's entire application, acknowledging the strength in other areas and the potential for growth in critical reasoning, provided the guidelines permit holistic evaluation. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge common in academic admissions, balancing the desire to admit promising candidates with the need to adhere to established institutional policies and fair assessment practices. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying the university's entrance exam guidelines in a way that is both equitable and defensible, especially when faced with a candidate who exhibits potential but falls short on a specific, albeit important, criterion. Careful judgment is required to avoid bias and ensure that decisions are based on the stated assessment framework. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's overall profile against the stated entrance exam criteria, recognizing that, while a specific score might be a benchmark, the assessment is designed to be holistic. This approach aligns with the principles of fair evaluation, where individual circumstances are considered within the established framework. The American University of Madaba entrance exam guidelines, as a regulatory framework, would likely emphasize a comprehensive assessment of a candidate's readiness, not solely on a single metric. Ethical considerations would also dictate that a candidate not be disqualified solely on one aspect if other indicators strongly suggest suitability, provided the framework allows for such discretion. An incorrect approach would be to rigidly adhere to a single score without considering the broader context of the candidate's application, especially if the guidelines allow for a degree of flexibility or holistic review. This could lead to an unfair exclusion of a potentially strong candidate. Another incorrect approach would be to arbitrarily lower the standard for this specific candidate due to perceived potential, as this would violate principles of fairness and equal treatment, potentially contravening the spirit of the entrance exam regulations. Furthermore, making a decision based on personal bias or external pressure, rather than the established assessment criteria, would be a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Professionals tasked with admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the governing regulations and guidelines. They should then systematically evaluate each candidate against all stated criteria, considering any provisions for holistic review or exceptions. Transparency in the process and the ability to justify decisions based on the established framework are paramount. If ambiguity exists in the guidelines, seeking clarification from the relevant academic or administrative body is a crucial step before making a final decision. Question 5. Investigation of the admissions committee's deliberation regarding a prospective student's application reveals a significant discrepancy between their high school transcripts and their standardized test scores. The committee is under pressure to meet enrollment targets for the upcoming academic year, which approach best upholds the integrity of the American University of Madaba's admissions process. Option A. Prioritize meeting the enrollment target by accepting the applicant based on the faculty member's strong personal recommendation, assuming the discrepancy is a minor issue. Option B. Expedite the admission process by overlooking the discrepancies, given the urgency to fill available spots and the applicants express strong interest in the university. Option C. Focus on the applicant's potential to secure external scholarships, as this would alleviate financial concerns for the university and demonstrate their resourcefulness. Option D. Conduct a thorough review of all submitted documents, including requesting clarification from the applicant and their previous institution regarding the discrepancies, and assess the applicant's overall profile against the university's admission criteria. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough review of all submitted documents, including requesting clarification from the applicant and their previous institution regarding the discrepancies, and assess the applicant's overall profile against the university's admission criteria. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the ethical obligation to maintain academic integrity and fairness in the admissions process. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can tempt decision-makers to overlook or downplay potential issues, compromising the university's reputation and the value of its degrees. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with fundamental principles of transparency and meritocracy. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of the applicant's qualifications against established admission criteria, without undue influence from external pressures or perceived institutional needs. This aligns with the American University of Madaba's commitment to academic excellence and fair evaluation, as implicitly required by any reputable educational institution's charter and ethical guidelines. It upholds the principle that admission should be based on merit and potential to succeed academically, ensuring that the university admits students who are genuinely prepared for its programs. This approach prioritizes long-term institutional integrity and academic standards over short-term enrollment figures. An approach that prioritizes meeting enrollment targets by overlooking discrepancies in an applicant's submitted documents is ethically flawed. It suggests a willingness to compromise academic standards and potentially admit unqualified students, which undermines the university's credibility and the value of its degrees. This could be seen as a breach of trust with current students, faculty, and the wider academic community. Another incorrect approach is to solely rely on the recommendation of a faculty member without independent verification of the applicant's credentials. Faculty recommendations are valuable. They should not supersede the established admissions process and the need for objective assessment of all submitted materials. This approach risks introducing bias and failing to identify potential issues that a comprehensive review would uncover, potentially leading to the admission of students who do not meet the university's standards. Furthermore, an approach that focuses on the applicant's potential financial contribution to the university, rather than their academic suitability, is a clear ethical violation. Admissions decisions must be based on academic merit and the applicant's ability to benefit from and contribute to the academic environment, not on their financial capacity or potential to secure external funding. This approach prioritizes financial gain over educational mission and can lead to a perception of favoritism and a decline in academic quality. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a commitment to the university's stated mission and values, adherence to established admissions policies and procedures, and a willingness to challenge any pressure that compromises ethical standards. It requires seeking clarification on policies, consulting with relevant committees or supervisors if ambiguity exists, and ultimately making a decision that upholds the integrity of the admissions process and the institution. Question 6. The efficiency study reveals that several administrative departments at the American University of Madaba may benefit from consolidation to streamline operations and reduce overhead. The university administration is considering merging two departments, which could lead to overlapping roles and potential redundancies. What is the most appropriate initial step the university should take to ensure this restructuring process is conducted ethically and in compliance with relevant Jordanian regulations? Option A. Seek external consultants to design the new departmental structure without engaging in internal consultations or impact analysis. Option B. Inform the affected employees of the impending merger and their potential new roles without a prior detailed assessment of the implications. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the potential effects on employees, operational efficiency, and student services, while ensuring alignment with the Jordanian labor law and university policies. Option D. Immediately initiate the merger process by reassigning staff based on perceived departmental needs, prioritizing cost reduction as the primary driver for the change. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the potential effects on employees, operational efficiency, and student services, while ensuring alignment with the Jordanian labor law and university policies. Explanation. The efficiency study reveals a potential need for restructuring within the American University of Madaba's administrative departments. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's operational needs with its ethical obligations to its employees and adherence to Jordanian labor laws and university policies. A hasty or poorly considered restructuring can lead to significant disruption, damage employee morale, and potentially result in legal repercussions if not handled with due diligence and fairness. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that meticulously analyzes the potential consequences of proposed changes on all stakeholders, including staff, students, and the university's overall mission. This assessment must be grounded in the principles of transparency, fairness, and compliance with the Jordanian labor law, which governs employment relationships, termination procedures, and employee rights. Specifically, it requires a thorough evaluation of how restructuring might affect job roles, responsibilities, and potential redundancies, ensuring that any decisions are justifiable, non-discriminatory, and follow established procedures for consultation and notification. Ethical considerations, such as maintaining a supportive work environment and minimizing negative impacts on individuals, are paramount. An incorrect approach would be to proceed with restructuring based solely on perceived cost savings, without a thorough assessment of human capital implications. This fails to acknowledge the legal and ethical duties owed to employees under Jordanian law, which mandates fair treatment and due process in employment matters. Another incorrect approach is to implement changes without adequate consultation with affected staff or their representatives, violating principles of good governance and potentially contravening university policies on employee engagement. Furthermore, ignoring the potential impact on student services or academic support functions would be a significant oversight, demonstrating a lack of holistic strategic thinking and failing to uphold the university's primary educational mission. Professionals tasked with such decisions should employ a structured decision-making framework. This begins with clearly defining the objectives of the restructuring. Next, a detailed impact assessment, encompassing financial, operational, and human resource dimensions, must be conducted. This assessment should identify potential risks and mitigation strategies, with a strong emphasis on legal compliance and ethical considerations. Stakeholder consultation, including open communication with employees, is crucial throughout the process. Finally, decisions should be made based on objective criteria, documented thoroughly, and implemented with sensitivity and fairness, ensuring adherence to all relevant Jordanian laws and university regulations. Question 7. Compliance review shows that a significant number of applicants for the upcoming American University of Madaba entrance exam are children of potential major donors. The admissions committee is under pressure to meet fundraising targets for the academic year, which approach best upholds the integrity of the admissions process and the university's ethical obligations. Option A. Inform potential donors that their children's admission is contingent upon their financial contributions, thereby securing both funding and student enrollment. Option B. Create a separate, less stringent evaluation track for applicants whose families are identified as potential major donors, ensuring their admission to meet fundraising goals. Option C. Evaluate all applicants strictly based on their entrance exam scores and adherence to the university's published admission criteria, irrespective of their family's donor status. Option D. Prioritize the admission of applicants from potential donor families, even if their entrance exam scores are slightly below the standard cutoff, to secure future funding. Correct answer is C. Evaluate all applicants strictly based on their entrance exam scores and adherence to the university's published admission criteria, irrespective of their family's donor status. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of its admissions process. The pressure to meet financial targets can create an environment where shortcuts or biased decision-making might be considered, undermining the fairness and credibility of the entrance exam. Careful judgment is required to balance institutional goals with the principles of academic integrity and equitable opportunity for all applicants. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of all applicants based solely on their performance in the entrance examination and adherence to established admission criteria. This aligns with the fundamental principles of fairness and meritocracy expected in academic institutions. Specifically, it requires the admissions committee to rigorously evaluate each application against the defined academic standards and the results of the standardized entrance exam, without allowing external factors like potential donor influence to sway decisions. This upholds the university's commitment to academic excellence and equal opportunity, which are implicitly governed by the ethical standards expected of educational bodies and their adherence to internal policies and the broader regulatory framework governing higher education in Jordan. An incorrect approach that prioritizes potential donor influence over objective merit would represent a significant ethical failure. This would violate the principle of fairness by creating an uneven playing field for applicants and could lead to the admission of less qualified individuals, thereby compromising the academic standards of the university. Such an action would also likely contravene internal university policies regarding admissions and potentially broader Jordanian regulations concerning the governance of higher education institutions, which emphasize transparency and merit-based selection. Another incorrect approach that involves creating a separate, less rigorous evaluation process for applicants linked to potential donors would similarly be a breach of ethical conduct and regulatory compliance. This would introduce bias and undermine the integrity of the standardized entrance examination, which is designed to be a uniform measure of academic preparedness. This selective application of standards is discriminatory and erodes trust in the admissions process. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear adherence to established policies and ethical guidelines. Professionals must first identify any potential conflicts of interest or undue influence. They should then consult relevant university regulations and ethical codes to ensure their actions are compliant. If ambiguity exists, seeking guidance from a supervisor or an ethics committee is crucial. The ultimate decision must be grounded in objective criteria and a commitment to fairness and academic integrity, prioritizing the long-term reputation and credibility of the institution over short-term gains or pressures. Question 8. When evaluating a potential partnership that offers significant financial benefits to the American University of Madaba, what is the most prudent approach to ensure compliance with Jordanian higher education regulations and maintain the university's academic integrity? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the potential partner's financial health, ethical reputation, and alignment with the university's mission and values, ensuring transparency and adherence to all relevant HEEC guidelines. Option B. Accept the offered funds without detailed inquiry into their source or intended use, provided the amount is substantial and beneficial to the university's immediate operational needs. Option C. Expedite the partnership agreement to secure the funding quickly, focusing primarily on the contractual terms of the financial contribution without extensive background checks. Option D. Prioritize the immediate financial gains offered by the partnership, assuming the partner's intentions are benign and that the funding will significantly boost university resources. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive due diligence investigation into the potential partner's financial health, ethical reputation, and alignment with the university's mission and values, ensuring transparency and adherence to all relevant HEEC guidelines. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's immediate financial needs with its long-term academic integrity and reputation. The pressure to secure funding can lead to overlooking potential ethical or regulatory breaches. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any partnership aligns with the university's mission and values and adheres to Jordanian higher education regulations. The correct approach involves a thorough due diligence process that scrutinizes the potential partner's financial stability, ethical standing, and alignment with the university's academic objectives. This includes verifying the source of funds, assessing the partner's track record, and ensuring transparency in all dealings. This approach is justified by the Jordanian Higher Education Accreditation Commission, HEEC guidelines, which mandate that universities maintain academic quality and ethical standards in all collaborations and financial arrangements. Adhering to these guidelines protects the university's accreditation and reputation. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the financial benefits without adequate scrutiny fails to uphold the HEEC emphasis on academic integrity and responsible financial management. This could lead to association with entities involved in unethical practices, potentially jeopardizing the university's accreditation and public trust. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes speed over thoroughness risks overlooking critical red flags, such as undisclosed conflicts of interest or unsustainable financial commitments. This violates the principle of prudent financial stewardship expected of educational institutions. A further incorrect approach that involves accepting funds without understanding their origin or intended use is ethically unsound and could expose the university to legal and reputational damage, contravening the HEEC requirements for transparency and accountability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the core objective, securing funding, but immediately layers in risk assessment and ethical considerations. This involves consulting relevant university policies, seeking legal counsel if necessary, and engaging in a multi-stakeholder review process to ensure all potential impacts are considered before committing to any partnership. The framework should prioritize long-term institutional health and ethical compliance over short-term gains. Question 9. Cost-benefit analysis shows a potential for significant enrollment growth and revenue generation from a proposed new specialized degree program, but also highlights substantial upfront investment in faculty and specialized equipment. Considering the American University of Madaba's commitment to academic excellence and student success, which approach best guides the decision-making process for introducing this program? Option A. Conduct a thorough impact assessment that evaluates academic feasibility, resource allocation, alignment with university mission, and potential long-term student outcomes, alongside financial projections. Option B. Implement the program with minimal initial investment, scaling up only if immediate enrollment targets are met to mitigate financial risk. Option C. Delay the decision indefinitely due to the high initial investment, prioritizing existing programs over potential new ventures. Option D. Proceed with the program solely based on the projected financial returns, assuming market demand will sustain it. The correct answer is D. Proceed with the program solely based on the projected financial returns, assuming market demand will sustain it. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the potential benefits of a new academic program against its associated costs and risks, all within the specific regulatory and ethical framework of the American University of Madaba entrance exam. The university must ensure that any new initiative aligns with its mission, academic standards, and financial sustainability, while also considering the impact on prospective students and the broader educational landscape. Careful judgment is required to avoid making decisions based solely on perceived immediate gains, without a thorough understanding of long-term implications and adherence to established guidelines. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that goes beyond a simple cost-benefit calculation. It necessitates a qualitative and quantitative evaluation of the proposed program's alignment with the university's strategic goals, its potential to enhance academic offerings, its resource requirements, faculty, facilities, administrative support, and its market demand. Crucially, it must also consider the ethical implications, such as ensuring the program's academic rigor, fair admission processes, and the value it provides to students. This approach is justified by the university's responsibility to maintain academic excellence and provide a valuable educational experience, as implicitly guided by the principles of responsible institutional development and student welfare, which are paramount in any educational institution's operational framework. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on the projected revenue generation from student enrollment, without adequately assessing the program's academic viability or the strain it might place on existing resources. This fails to consider the university's core mission of education and research, potentially leading to a dilution of academic quality and a negative impact on student learning outcomes. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize the perceived ease of implementation over a thorough risk assessment, ignoring potential challenges related to accreditation, faculty expertise, or student support services. This overlooks the regulatory expectation for robust program planning and due diligence, which are essential for institutional integrity and long-term sustainability. A third incorrect approach would be to disregard the feedback from relevant stakeholders, such as faculty committees or admissions departments, in favor of a top-down decision. This violates principles of good governance and collaborative decision-making, which are vital for effective institutional management, and can lead to the implementation of programs that are not well supported or understood by those responsible for their delivery. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured impact assessment framework. This framework should begin with clearly defining the objectives of the proposed initiative. It should then involve identifying all relevant stakeholders and gathering their input. A thorough analysis of potential benefits, costs, risks, and opportunities should be conducted, considering both quantitative and qualitative factors. This analysis must be grounded in the specific regulatory and ethical guidelines applicable to the institution. Finally, a comprehensive report should be prepared, outlining the findings and providing a reasoned recommendation, which is then subject to appropriate review and approval processes. Question 10. Analysis of the American University of Madaba's Financial Committee's dilemma in addressing an immediate budget shortfall by considering the liquidation of certain long-term investments. What is the most prudent course of action to ensure both immediate solvency and long-term financial health? Option A. Postpone any decision regarding investment liquidation until the next fiscal year, hoping that operational revenues will improve sufficiently to cover the shortfall. Option B. Prioritize selling off the most liquid but lowest-yielding long-term investments to minimize immediate risk, even if it means a smaller immediate cash inflow. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of potential investment liquidation strategies, evaluating risks, returns, liquidity, and alignment with the university's long-term financial goals and mission. Option D. Immediately liquidate the highest-yielding, but also highest-risk, long-term investments to generate the necessary funds as quickly as possible. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment of potential investment liquidation strategies, evaluating risks, returns, liquidity, and alignment with the university's long-term financial goals and mission. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term implications of its investment strategy. A responsible approach requires balancing these competing interests while adhering to ethical principles and any applicable university policies or Jordanian financial regulations that might govern institutional investments. The core of the challenge lies in ensuring that investment decisions are not solely driven by short-term liquidity concerns, but are also aligned with the university's mission, financial sustainability, and fiduciary duties. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that considers both the immediate financial requirements and the potential long-term consequences of various investment strategies. This includes evaluating the risk profile of different investment options, their potential returns, liquidity, and alignment with the university's overall financial objectives and ethical guidelines. Such an assessment ensures that decisions are informed, prudent, and serve the best interests of the institution and its stakeholders over time. This aligns with principles of good governance and responsible financial management, which are implicitly expected of educational institutions. An approach that prioritizes immediate liquidity without considering the long-term impact risks significant capital erosion. This could lead to a failure to meet future operational needs or strategic goals, potentially jeopardizing the university's ability to fulfill its educational mission. It also fails to uphold the fiduciary duty to manage assets prudently for the long term. An approach that solely focuses on maximizing short-term returns, even if it involves higher risk, is also problematic. While attractive for immediate cash flow, it could expose the university to substantial losses, undermining its financial stability and reputation. This disregards the principle of risk management and the need for a balanced investment portfolio. An approach that defers the decision entirely without any analysis or consideration of the university's financial position is irresponsible. It fails to address the immediate need for liquidity and neglects the fundamental responsibility of financial stewardship. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, clearly define the problem and the objectives, e.g., meeting immediate liquidity needs while preserving long-term capital. Second, gather relevant information about the university's financial situation, investment options, and any governing policies. Third, conduct a comprehensive impact assessment, considering various scenarios and their potential outcomes. Fourth, consult with relevant stakeholders, such as the Finance Committee or Board of Trustees. Finally, make a well-reasoned decision based on the assessment and stakeholder input, ensuring transparency and accountability. Question 11. The assessment process reveals that a prospective student for the engineering program at the American University of Madaba has demonstrated exceptional aptitude in mathematics and physics, but a significantly lower than average score in introductory chemistry. Considering the university's commitment to fostering diverse talent and maintaining academic excellence, which of the following approaches best reflects a responsible and ethical admissions decision-making process? Option A. Offer conditional admission contingent upon successful completion of a remedial chemistry course during the first semester, coupled with mandatory participation in a peer tutoring program for chemistry. Option B. Admit the applicant without any specific provisions, assuming their strengths in other areas will compensate for the weakness in chemistry. Option C. Offer admission to a non-engineering program that does not require a strong chemistry background, suggesting the applicant reapply to engineering after demonstrating improvement in chemistry at another institution. Option D. Reject the applicant outright due to the low score in a foundational science subject, prioritizing only candidates with consistently high scores across all core science disciplines. Correct answer is A. Offer conditional admission contingent upon successful completion of a remedial chemistry course during the first semester, coupled with mandatory participation in a peer tutoring program for chemistry. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for the admissions committee of the American University of Madaba, ALM, as they evaluate a candidate whose academic record, while strong in some areas, shows a significant weakness in a core subject crucial for their chosen program. This requires a nuanced judgment beyond simply looking at overall scores. The committee must balance the university's commitment to academic rigor with its mission to provide educational opportunities. The correct approach involves a holistic review that considers the candidate's potential for success despite the identified weakness. This means looking for mitigating factors, such as strong performance in related subjects, evidence of self-study or tutoring in the weaker area, a compelling personal statement explaining the circumstances, and strong recommendations that speak to the candidate's resilience and aptitude. This approach aligns with ethical principles of fairness and equity in admissions, aiming to identify students who can thrive at AUM and contribute positively to the academic community, rather than solely relying on a single data point. It also reflects a responsible assessment process that seeks to understand the full picture of a candidate's capabilities. An incorrect approach would be to automatically reject the candidate based solely on the low score in the core subject. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of growth and potential, and it overlooks the comprehensive nature of a well-rounded applicant. Ethically, this rigid adherence to a single metric can be seen as unfair and discriminatory, potentially barring promising students who might overcome their initial academic hurdles. Another incorrect approach would be to admit the candidate without any conditions or support mechanisms. This would be irresponsible, as it sets the student up for potential failure and does not uphold the university's commitment to academic standards. It also fails to address the identified weakness proactively. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a comprehensive evaluation. This involves establishing clear, yet flexible, admission criteria that allow for individual assessment. They should actively seek out information that provides context for academic performance, such as explanations for poor grades or evidence of improvement. Furthermore, a commitment to ongoing support for admitted students, particularly those with identified areas for development, is crucial for ensuring their success and upholding the university's educational mission. Question 12. The assessment process reveals that a significant number of applicants for the American University of Madaba entrance exam have demonstrated strong performance across most sections, but a small subset exhibits an unusual pattern of exceptionally high scores in one specific area coupled with unexpectedly low scores in another, raising questions about the validity of their overall assessment. Option A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the assessment data for these applicants, considering their performance across all sections, the nature of the unusual pattern, and any contextual information available, to determine if further investigation or a supplementary assessment is warranted before making an admissions decision. Option B. Recommend a mandatory reassessment for all applicants exhibiting this specific score pattern, regardless of their overall performance, to ensure the integrity of the entrance examination. Option C. Immediately flag these applicants for potential disqualification due to the inconsistent assessment results, as this pattern may indicate a lack of genuine understanding or an attempt to manipulate the assessment. Option D. Focus solely on the exceptionally high scores in the specific area to identify potential candidates for specialized programs, disregarding the lower scores in other sections as outliers. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive review of the assessment data for these applicants, considering their performance across all sections, the nature of the unusual pattern, and any contextual information available, to determine if further investigation or a supplementary assessment is warranted before making an admissions decision. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for comprehensive student assessment with the ethical imperative to ensure fairness and avoid undue pressure. The American University of Madaba entrance exam, like any academic institution, is bound by its own internal regulations and general principles of educational assessment, which emphasize validity, reliability, fairness, and transparency. The challenge lies in interpreting assessment data to make informed decisions about admissions without introducing biases or creating an environment that compromises student well-being. The correct approach involves a holistic review of the assessment results, considering multiple factors beyond a single test score. This aligns with best practices in admissions, which aim to identify candidates who possess not only academic potential, but also the capacity to succeed in the university environment. This approach is ethically sound as it promotes fairness by acknowledging that a single data point may not fully represent a student's capabilities and allows for consideration of extenuating circumstances or diverse strengths. It also adheres to the principle of transparency by using a well-defined and equitable evaluation process. An approach that solely focuses on a narrow interpretation of a single assessment metric, such as a specific subscore, without considering the broader context, is ethically flawed. It risks penalizing students unfairly based on a potentially unrepresentative performance and fails to acknowledge the multifaceted nature of academic aptitude. This approach can also be seen as lacking transparency if the criteria for such a narrow focus are not clearly communicated or justified. Another incorrect approach, which involves immediately disqualifying candidates based on a perceived anomaly in the assessment data without further investigation, is also ethically problematic. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and can lead to the exclusion of potentially strong candidates. It fails to uphold the principle of fairness by not allowing for clarification or consideration of mitigating factors. Such an approach can also be perceived as arbitrary and lacking in procedural fairness. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a structured review of assessment data. This includes understanding the purpose and limitations of each assessment component, considering the overall profile of the applicant, and adhering to established institutional policies for admission. Professionals should be trained to identify potential issues in assessment data and have clear protocols for addressing them, which may include seeking further information, consulting with colleagues, or applying established criteria for exceptions or further review. The focus should always be on making a fair and informed decision that serves the best interests of both the applicant and the institution. Question 13. Research into the admission process for the American University of Madaba reveals a scenario where a prospective student, whose family is a significant potential donor, is being considered for entrance. The admissions committee is aware of the family's financial capacity and their expressed interest in supporting university initiatives. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for university admissions? Option A. Offer the applicant a slightly modified entrance exam format, believing it might better reflect their potential given their family's background and anticipated future engagement with the university. Option B. Prioritize the applicant's admission due to their family's influential connections and potential to benefit the university through their network and future support. Option C. Consider the applicant's family's potential financial contributions as a significant factor in the admission decision, alongside their academic merits, to foster a beneficial relationship with potential donors. Option D. Evaluate the applicant solely based on their academic qualifications, entrance exam performance, and adherence to all established admission criteria, irrespective of any potential financial contributions from their family. The correct answer is D. Evaluate the applicant solely based on their academic qualifications, entrance exam performance, and adherence to all established admission criteria, irrespective of any potential financial contributions from their family. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The pressure to perform well on an entrance exam, especially for a competitive program at a reputable institution like the American University of Madaba, can lead individuals to seek shortcuts. The core of the challenge lies in upholding ethical standards and regulatory compliance within the educational framework of the university, ensuring that all applicants are evaluated on their own merits. The correct approach involves a thorough and independent assessment of the applicant's qualifications and potential, strictly adhering to the established admission criteria and procedures of the American University of Madaba. This means evaluating the applicant's academic record, entrance exam performance, and any other required documentation without external influence or bias. The justification for this approach is rooted in the university's regulatory framework. which mandates fair and equitable admissions processes. Ethically, it upholds the principle of academic integrity, ensuring that the university admits students who have earned their place through genuine effort and ability. This aligns with the university's mission to provide quality education and maintain its reputation. An incorrect approach would be to consider the applicant's family's financial contributions or potential future donations as a factor in the admission decision. This is a regulatory failure because university admissions policies, as governed by their internal regulations and potentially broader educational oversight bodies in Jordan, are designed to be merit-based. Introducing financial considerations as a criterion for admission undermines the fairness and integrity of the process. Ethically, it constitutes a conflict of interest and a breach of trust, suggesting that admission can be bought, which is contrary to the principles of academic meritocracy. Another incorrect approach would be to prioritize the applicant's personal connections or recommendations from influential individuals over their objective qualifications. This is a regulatory failure, as it bypasses the established admission criteria and procedures outlined by the American University of Madaba. Such practices can lead to the admission of less qualified candidates, thereby diluting the academic standards of the university. Ethically, it is a form of favoritism and nepotism, which erodes fairness and equal opportunity for all applicants. A third incorrect approach would be to offer the applicant preferential treatment or special accommodations during the entrance exam based on their background, without a documented and justifiable need, e.g., a disability requiring accommodation as per university policy. This is a regulatory failure because it deviates from the standardized testing procedures designed to ensure a level playing field for all candidates. Ethically, it is unfair to other applicants who are subjected to the standard examination conditions and could be seen as compromising the validity of the assessment. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding and strict adherence to the American University of Madaba's admission policies and ethical guidelines. Professionals must first identify the core objective of the admission process, to select qualified candidates based on merit. They should then systematically evaluate each applicant against these objective criteria, ensuring that no external factors, such as financial influence, personal connections, or undue pressure, compromise the integrity of the evaluation. If faced with a situation where such pressures arise, the professional should consult the relevant university policies, seek guidance from superiors or the admissions committee, and document all decisions and justifications to ensure transparency and accountability. The ultimate goal is to uphold the academic standards and ethical reputation of the institution. Question 14. Benchmark analysis indicates that the American University of Madaba is exploring ways to optimize its admissions process to attract a more diverse and academically strong student body. A proposal has been put forth to conduct a deep dive into applicant data to identify key demographic and academic predictors of successful enrollment and retention. Which of the following approaches best aligns with ethical considerations and responsible data handling for this university entrance exam context? Option A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that scrutinizes the necessity and proportionality of data collection and analysis, identifies potential privacy risks, and outlines mitigation strategies before proceeding with any data analysis. Option B. Share aggregated but potentially identifiable admissions data with external marketing agencies to refine recruitment strategies without explicit applicant consent or robust anonymization. Option C. Focus primarily on identifying statistical correlations that could lead to increased enrollment numbers, regardless of the privacy implications of the data used. Option D. Collect additional, non-essential personal data from applicants to build a more detailed profile for predictive modeling, without explicit consent for this expanded data collection. The correct answer is A. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that scrutinizes the necessity and proportionality of data collection and analysis, identifies potential privacy risks, and outlines mitigation strategies before proceeding with any data analysis. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing the university's need for accurate admissions data with the ethical obligation to protect applicant privacy. The pressure to meet enrollment targets can create a temptation to manipulate or selectively present information, which directly conflicts with principles of academic integrity and data protection. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any data analysis serves legitimate academic and administrative purposes without compromising individual rights. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough impact assessment that prioritizes data privacy and ethical considerations from the outset. This means identifying potential risks to applicant data, evaluating the necessity and proportionality of data collection and analysis, and implementing safeguards to mitigate any negative impacts. This aligns with the principles of responsible data management and ethical research practices, which are implicitly expected in academic institutions. While specific Jordanian data protection laws might not be explicitly detailed in the exam's framework, the general ethical imperative to protect personal information is universally recognized in academic and professional settings. Incorrect approaches analysis, an approach that focuses solely on identifying patterns that could lead to increased enrollment without considering the privacy implications of the data used, is ethically flawed. It prioritizes institutional goals over individual rights and could lead to the misuse or unauthorized disclosure of sensitive applicant information. This violates the fundamental ethical duty of care towards applicants, an approach that involves collecting additional, non-essential personal data from applicants under the guise of a more comprehensive analysis without clear justification or consent is also problematic. This constitutes an overreach in data collection and infringes upon applicant privacy. It suggests a disregard for the principle of data minimization, which dictates collecting only what is necessary for a stated purpose, an approach that proposes sharing aggregated, but potentially identifiable, admissions data with external marketing agencies without explicit consent or anonymization is a significant ethical and potential legal breach. This exposes applicant data to unauthorized access and use, undermining trust and violating privacy expectations. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic admissions should adopt a risk-based approach to data analysis. This involves proactively identifying potential ethical and privacy risks associated with any data-driven initiative. They should then evaluate the necessity and proportionality of data collection and analysis, ensuring that all activities are conducted in accordance with ethical principles and any applicable guidelines regarding data protection. Transparency with applicants regarding data usage and obtaining appropriate consent are crucial steps. When in doubt, seeking guidance from relevant university ethics committees or data protection officers is advisable. Question 15. Comparative studies suggest that university entrance exams are critical for assessing a candidate's readiness. If a prospective student approaches an admissions officer at the American University of Madaba and asks for specific topics or questions that will appear on the upcoming entrance exam, stating they want to prepare effectively, what is the most appropriate course of action for the admissions officer to take, adhering strictly to the principles of academic integrity and fair admissions? Option A. Provide the student with a list of the most likely topics and a few sample questions, explaining that this will help them prepare effectively as requested. Option B. Suggest that the student focus on general knowledge and critical thinking skills, as the exam is designed to assess these broad abilities rather than specific memorized content. Option C. Politely inform the student that the exam content is confidential and cannot be disclosed, but offer general guidance on the types of subjects covered and recommend reviewing foundational course materials from their previous studies. Option D. Advise the student to seek external tutoring services that specialize in entrance exam preparation, without offering any specific information about the exam itself. Correct answer is C. Politely inform the student that the exam content is confidential and cannot be disclosed, but offer general guidance on the types of subjects covered and recommend reviewing foundational course materials from their previous studies. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic advancement and the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment. The entrance exam is designed to gauge a candidate's foundational knowledge and potential, and any attempt to circumvent this process undermines its validity and fairness to other applicants. The American University of Madaba, like any reputable institution, is bound by its own internal regulations and ethical guidelines concerning admissions and academic honesty. These principles are paramount in ensuring the quality of its student body and the credibility of its degrees. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent communication of the university's policies and the consequences of academic dishonesty. This aligns with the ethical obligation to uphold academic integrity and to ensure a fair admissions process. Specifically, the university's regulatory framework, as would be expected for any educational institution, would mandate adherence to principles of honesty and fairness in all academic and admissions-related activities, providing clear guidance on what constitutes academic misconduct and the penalties associated with it is a fundamental aspect of maintaining these standards. This approach prioritizes transparency and upholds the university's commitment to admitting students based on merit and genuine understanding. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the student's query or to provide a vague, non-committal response. This fails to address the student's underlying intent and could be interpreted as tacit approval or a lack of vigilance, thereby compromising the university's commitment to academic integrity. Another incorrect approach would be to offer assistance that could be construed as facilitating academic dishonesty, such as providing answers or hints. This directly violates the principles of fair assessment and academic honesty, exposing the university to reputational damage and potentially invalidating the admissions process. Furthermore, any approach that involves sharing confidential exam materials or procedures would be a severe breach of security and ethical conduct, undermining the entire admissions system. Professionals in admissions and academic administration should employ a decision-making process that prioritizes ethical conduct, adherence to institutional policies, and fairness. This involves clearly understanding the university's regulations regarding academic integrity and admissions. When faced with inquiries that suggest potential misconduct, the professional should first identify the core issue and then respond by clearly articulating the relevant policies and the expected standards of behavior. If the inquiry itself is problematic, the response should be firm, informative, and focused on upholding the integrity of the process, without being accusatory but also without ambiguity. Escalation to a supervisor or relevant committee may be necessary if the situation warrants further review or disciplinary action. Question 16. Process analysis reveals that the American University of Madaba is facing pressure to increase its endowment. A prominent alumnus, whose family is known for significant philanthropic contributions, has expressed interest in enrolling their child. The child's academic record, while meeting the minimum entry requirements, is not as strong as many other applicants. The admissions committee is aware that approving this application could lead to substantial future donations. What is the most ethically and professionally sound approach for the admissions committee to consider? Option A. Evaluate the applicant solely on their academic merit and adherence to all standard admissions criteria, just like any other candidate, without regard to their family's financial status or potential for future donations. Option B. Inform the alumnus that, while their child's application is being considered, admission is contingent upon a commitment of a significant donation to the university. Option C. Create a special admissions category for applicants whose families have a history of significant financial contributions, allowing for a more lenient review of their academic qualifications. Option D. Expedite the review of this applicant's file, giving it priority over other applications, to signal the university's interest in their family's potential generosity. The correct answer is A. Evaluate the applicant solely on their academic merit and adherence to all standard admissions criteria, just like any other candidate, without regard to their family's financial status or potential for future donations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure the integrity of the admissions process. The admissions committee must exercise careful judgment to balance these competing interests, prioritizing fairness and meritocracy over financial expediency. The regulatory framework for university admissions, while not explicitly detailed here as it pertains to a specific Jordanian law for this exam, generally emphasizes principles of equal opportunity, non-discrimination, and adherence to established academic criteria. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of all applicants based on predefined academic and personal criteria, irrespective of their potential financial contributions. This aligns with the ethical imperative to maintain a fair and transparent admissions process, ensuring that only qualified candidates are admitted. Such an approach upholds the university's reputation for academic excellence and its commitment to fostering a diverse and capable student body. An incorrect approach that prioritizes a candidate solely based on their family's potential to make a significant donation without a rigorous evaluation of their academic qualifications represents a failure to uphold the principles of meritocracy and equal opportunity. This could lead to the admission of underqualified students, thereby compromising the academic standards of the university and potentially violating ethical guidelines that prohibit undue influence or preferential treatment in admissions. Another incorrect approach, which involves creating a separate, less stringent admissions track for wealthy applicants, is also professionally unacceptable. This practice undermines the integrity of the standard admissions process and creates a perception of a two-tiered system, where financial status trumps academic merit. This can lead to legal challenges and significant reputational damage for the institution. Finally, an approach that involves delaying the review of applications from less affluent candidates to prioritize those from potentially wealthy families is unethical and discriminatory. This practice creates an unfair advantage for certain applicants and disadvantages others based on their socioeconomic background, violating principles of fairness and equal treatment. Professionals in university admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of the university's mission and values, particularly concerning academic integrity and fairness. They must then consult and strictly adhere to all relevant internal policies and any applicable external regulations governing admissions. This involves establishing objective criteria, ensuring consistent application of these criteria to all applicants, and maintaining a transparent review process. In situations of potential conflict of interest, such as the one presented, seeking guidance from senior leadership or an ethics committee is crucial to ensure decisions are made in accordance with the highest ethical and regulatory standards. Question 17. Regulatory review indicates that the American University of Madaba is considering a new interdisciplinary program to attract international student enrollment and enhance its research profile. The proposed program requires significant initial investment, and a potential donor has expressed strong interest in funding it, contingent on a swift launch. What is the most appropriate approach for the university's academic leadership to ensure the program's long-term success and adherence to institutional standards? Option A. Prioritize securing the donor's funding by fast-tracking the program approval process, focusing primarily on the financial benefits and potential for increased enrollment, while deferring detailed academic quality checks until after the program is established. Option B. Develop a preliminary program outline that emphasizes its innovative aspects and potential for revenue generation, and present this to the donor to secure initial commitment, with the understanding that detailed academic planning will follow once funding is confirmed. Option C. Focus on the donor's specific interests and tailor the program proposal to align with their stated preferences, assuming that their investment signifies an endorsement of the program's academic merit and feasibility. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive academic impact assessment, critically evaluating the program's curriculum, faculty qualifications, learning outcomes, and resource requirements against existing institutional standards and accreditation guidelines, and present findings transparently to the potential donor. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive academic impact assessment, critically evaluating the program's curriculum, faculty qualifications, learning outcomes, and resource requirements against existing institutional standards and accreditation guidelines, and present findings transparently to the potential donor. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate need for funding and the ethical obligation to ensure that all academic programs meet established quality standards. The pressure to secure investment can lead to a temptation to overlook or downplay potential deficiencies in program design or faculty qualifications. Careful judgment is required to balance financial imperatives with the university's core mission of providing high-quality education and upholding academic integrity. The correct approach involves a thorough and objective assessment of the proposed program's alignment with the American University of Madaba's existing academic standards and accreditation requirements. This means critically evaluating the curriculum, faculty expertise, learning outcomes, and resource allocation to identify any potential gaps or areas of concern. The regulatory and ethical justification for this approach lies in the university's commitment to academic excellence, its responsibility to students to provide a valuable education, and its obligation to maintain its reputation and accreditation status. Adhering to established quality assurance frameworks ensures that new programs contribute positively to the university's academic portfolio and meet the needs of prospective students. An incorrect approach that prioritizes securing funding without a rigorous academic review fails to uphold the university's commitment to quality. This approach is ethically problematic as it risks offering a substandard program, potentially misleading students and damaging the university's reputation. It also violates the spirit of academic governance, which mandates that program development be driven by pedagogical soundness and alignment with institutional goals, not solely by financial considerations. Another incorrect approach that involves selectively presenting information to potential investors, highlighting only the positive aspects while omitting potential challenges or areas requiring improvement, is a breach of transparency and professional integrity. This misrepresentation can lead to unrealistic expectations and ultimately harm the university's credibility. It also bypasses the crucial internal evaluation process that is designed to identify and address potential issues before program launch. A further incorrect approach that involves rushing the approval process to meet a funding deadline, without allowing sufficient time for due diligence and stakeholder consultation, demonstrates a disregard for established academic procedures and quality control. This haste can lead to overlooking critical details, resulting in poorly designed programs or inadequate resource planning, which can have long-term negative consequences for both students and the institution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach that prioritizes academic integrity and due diligence. This includes 1. Clearly defining the objectives of the new program and its alignment with the university's strategic goals. 2. Conducting a comprehensive needs assessment and market analysis. 3. Developing a detailed program proposal that includes curriculum, faculty qualifications, learning outcomes, and resource requirements. 4. Engaging in a rigorous internal review process involving relevant academic departments, faculty committees, and administrative bodies. 5. Seeking external expert review where appropriate. 6. Ensuring transparency and open communication with all stakeholders, including potential investors and regulatory bodies. 7. Making decisions based on objective evidence and a commitment to academic quality, even if it means delaying or modifying proposals to meet established standards. Question 18. Consider a scenario where during the American University of Madaba entrance exam, a proctor observes a student exhibiting behavior that raises suspicion of academic dishonesty, specifically looking repeatedly at a small, concealed object in their lap. The proctor reports this observation. What is the most appropriate next step for the university administration to ensure a fair and compliant process? Option A. Interview the student privately after the exam to ask about their behavior without involving any formal investigation process. Option B. Overlook the proctor's observation, assuming it might be a misunderstanding, and allow the student to complete the exam without further action. Option C. Immediately disqualify the student from the exam and initiate disciplinary proceedings based on the proctor's suspicion. Option D. Conduct a thorough investigation, gathering all available evidence including the proctor's detailed report and any relevant digital records, and then present the findings to the university's Academic Integrity Committee for a formal review according to established procedures. The correct answer is C. Immediately disqualify the student from the exam and initiate disciplinary proceedings based on the proctor's suspicion. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a student's desire for academic success and the university's commitment to academic integrity. The university entrance exam, as a gatekeeper to higher education, demands a rigorous and fair assessment process. The challenge lies in identifying and addressing potential breaches of this integrity without unfairly penalizing genuine effort or creating an environment of distrust. Careful judgment is required to balance the need for security with the student experience. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation, adhering strictly to the American University of Madaba's established examination regulations and academic integrity policies. This approach prioritizes evidence-based decision-making and due process for the student. Specifically, it requires gathering all relevant information, including the proctor's report and any digital evidence, and then presenting these findings to the appropriate academic misconduct committee. This committee, operating under the university's established procedures, will then make a determination based on the evidence and the university's policies. This aligns with the ethical principle of fairness and the regulatory requirement for universities to maintain academic standards. An incorrect approach would be to immediately dismiss the student based solely on the proctor's initial suspicion without further investigation. This fails to uphold the principle of due process and presumes guilt without providing the student an opportunity to respond or present their side of the story. It also bypasses the university's established procedures for handling academic misconduct, potentially violating internal regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the proctor's report entirely, assuming it might be an overreaction. This neglects the university's responsibility to ensure the integrity of its entrance examinations and could allow for academic dishonesty to go unchecked, undermining the credibility of the admissions process. It also fails to address a potential violation of university policy. A third incorrect approach would be to conduct a superficial inquiry that does not involve reviewing all available evidence or consulting the relevant university policies. This could lead to an unjust outcome, either by wrongly penalizing a student or by failing to identify and address academic misconduct. It demonstrates a lack of diligence and a failure to adhere to professional standards of investigation. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. 1. Acknowledge and document the initial concern or report. 2. Consult the relevant university policies and regulations regarding academic integrity and examination procedures. 3. Gather all available evidence objectively. 4. Provide the student with an opportunity to respond to the allegations. 5. Present the case and evidence to the designated academic misconduct committee or authority. 6. Ensure the decision is made based on the evidence and in accordance with university policy. 7. Communicate the decision and any consequences clearly to the student. Question 19. The assessment process reveals that a candidate for admission to the American University of Madaba has a strong academic record, but also a documented instance of plagiarism in a previous academic submission, which they have acknowledged. The admissions committee must decide how to proceed with this candidate's application. Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the plagiarism incident, seeking further explanation from the candidate and assessing their understanding of academic integrity before making a final decision. Option B. Admit the candidate based on their strong academic record, considering the plagiarism incident a minor issue that does not warrant further consideration. Option C. Immediately reject the candidate's application due to the clear violation of academic integrity, regardless of their academic achievements. Option D. Forward the case to a disciplinary committee for a formal hearing before any admission decision is made, without engaging the candidate directly about the incident. Correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of the plagiarism incident, seeking further explanation from the candidate and assessing their understanding of academic integrity before making a final decision. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a candidate's potential for academic success, but also highlights a gap in their understanding of ethical conduct within the academic and professional spheres. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires the admissions committee to balance the desire to admit promising students with the imperative to uphold the university's integrity and ethical standards. A careful judgment is required to determine if the candidate's ethical lapse is a minor oversight or indicative of a deeper issue that could impact their future conduct. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the candidate's application materials, focusing on any instances of academic dishonesty or ethical breaches. This approach is right because it directly addresses the core concern raised by the assessment. It involves seeking clarification from the candidate regarding the specific incident, allowing them to explain their actions and demonstrate remorse or understanding. This aligns with principles of fairness and due process, while also upholding the university's commitment to academic integrity as outlined in its admissions policies and student conduct codes. The university has a responsibility to ensure that admitted students understand and adhere to ethical standards, and this approach allows for an informed decision based on evidence and the candidate's response. An incorrect approach that involves immediate rejection without further inquiry fails to provide the candidate with an opportunity to explain or rectify the situation, potentially leading to an unfair outcome. This overlooks the possibility of a misunderstanding or a learning experience for the candidate, and it does not align with a commitment to holistic evaluation. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the ethical lapse entirely and proceed with admission based solely on academic merit, would be a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This would undermine the university's stated values and could set a precedent for accepting students who do not meet ethical benchmarks, thereby compromising the integrity of the institution and the future professional conduct of its graduates. It would also violate the university's own admissions criteria that likely include character and ethical considerations. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach. First, identify and clearly define the ethical concern. Second, gather all relevant information and evidence pertaining to the concern. Third, provide the individual in question an opportunity to respond and explain their perspective. Fourth, evaluate the response against established ethical guidelines and university policies. Finally, make a decision that is fair, consistent with institutional values, and defensible based on the gathered information and established procedures. Question 20. The investigation demonstrates that the American University of Madaba's endowment fund management is considering a shift towards higher-risk, higher-return investments to meet immediate operational budget shortfalls. This strategy, while potentially offering a quick influx of capital, carries significant long-term volatility and reputational risks. Which approach best aligns with the university's fiduciary responsibilities and ethical obligations? Option A. Immediately implement the high-risk investment strategy to address the urgent budget needs, prioritizing short-term financial gains. Option B. Diversify the endowment across a wider range of low-risk, low-return assets to ensure absolute capital preservation, even if it means not meeting immediate budget demands. Option C. Seek external short-term loans to cover the budget shortfall, allowing the endowment to maintain its current, more conservative investment approach. Option D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment, evaluating the financial, ethical, and reputational consequences of the proposed investment strategy, ensuring alignment with the university's mission and values. The correct answer is D. Conduct a thorough impact assessment evaluating the financial, ethical, and reputational consequences of the proposed investment strategy, ensuring alignment with the university's mission and values. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's immediate financial needs and the long-term implications of its investment strategy. The university's endowment, intended for sustained support of its educational mission, is being managed in a way that prioritizes short-term gains over prudent risk management and ethical considerations, potentially jeopardizing its future financial stability and reputation. Careful judgment is required to balance immediate resource demands with the fiduciary duty to preserve and grow the endowment for future generations. The correct approach involves conducting a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates the potential financial, ethical, and reputational consequences of the proposed investment strategy. This assessment should consider the alignment of the investments with the university's mission and values, the long-term sustainability of returns, and the potential for negative externalities. Regulatory frameworks, such as those governing nonprofit organizations and investment fiduciaries, mandate a duty of care and loyalty, requiring decisions to be made in the best interest of the institution. An impact assessment directly addresses these duties by providing a structured, evidence-based evaluation of risks and benefits, ensuring that decisions are informed and defensible. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on maximizing short-term returns without considering the broader implications fails to uphold the fiduciary duty. This approach neglects the principle of prudence, which requires investment decisions to be made with the care, skill, and diligence that a prudent person would exercise in similar circumstances. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes immediate liquidity needs over diversification and risk management exposes the endowment to undue volatility and potential capital loss, violating the duty to preserve and grow assets. Furthermore, an approach that ignores potential ethical concerns associated with the investments, such as those in industries with questionable social or environmental practices, could lead to reputational damage and undermine stakeholder trust, contravening the ethical obligations of responsible stewardship. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives and constraints. This is followed by identifying and evaluating all relevant options, considering their potential impacts across financial, ethical, and reputational dimensions. A thorough risk assessment, informed by regulatory requirements and ethical principles, is crucial. Finally, decisions should be documented, and their outcomes regularly reviewed to ensure ongoing alignment with the institution's mission and best interests.